In fact, Jesus told his disciples that the preaching of the gospel was to be rolled out or presented in an orderly fashion, because God is a God of order. The orderly fashion, it was to first be preached in Jerusalem. That occurred in Acts chapter number 2. After that, it was to be preached in Samaria. That occurred in Acts chapter number 8. And finally, the gospel, Jesus said, was to be preached unto the uttermost part of the earth. That was to encompass the Gentiles. As of this 10th chapter, chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the gospel hadn't gotten to the Gentiles yet. As of this 10th chapter, the outreach to the Gentiles had still not yet occurred. And to be honest, there was nothing actively being done on the part of the apostles, inclusive of Peter, to reach out to the Gentiles to get this gospel to its final destination, the uttermost part of the earth. And for this reason, God had to intercede. He had to intercede because the outreach stopped at the Samaritans. And it seemed that prejudiced Peter had no intentions of taking this gospel to the Gentiles. Jewish as it was up to this point, and as far as Peter and the rest of the apostles, Jewish it was going to remain, and it stopped at the Samaritans. If it were up to the Jewish Christians at this time, it's going to stay that way. So Acts chapter 10 gives us the next move. It gives us the direct intervention of God to break this log jam and get this gospel to the Gentiles. In verses 1 through 8, God tells the Gentile Cornelius, who lives in Caesarea, verse 1, to send to Joppa, verse 5, and to ask for a man named Simon, even telling Cornelius that Simon's surname is Peter, verse number 5. God even tells Cornelius whose house Simon Peter is living in. In verse 6, God tells Cornelius, he, referring to Simon Peter, lodgeth with a man named Simon a tanner. Oh, and by the way, God adds, Simon the tanner's house is located by the seaside. I say that to say that God is specific. And that's the kind of specificity that I just want to amplify on for a moment. God gives specifics because he's an all-knowing God. When God speaks, and if God speaks, and when God speaks, God does not talk in generalities. God gave Cornelius the city where Peter was located. God said it's in Joppa. God gave Cornelius Simon's surname. He said his surname is Peter. God gave Cornelius the street name where the house was located. It was Straight Street. God gave Cornelius the general locale of the house. He said it's by the seaside. God gave Cornelius the name of the owner of the house. He said his name is Simon. God gave Cornelius the occupation of the owner of the house. He said he's a tanner. So when God speaks, God gives specifics. God does not deal in generalities. God also let Cornelius know that there are really two Simons in the house. God told Cornelius that so that Cornelius would ask for the right Simon. Simon whose surname was Peter, and not Simon who was the tanner. Why? Because if you ask for the wrong man, you won't get the right answer.
That's right.
So you better make sure you know you're asking for the right person. If God's got a message for you, well, just tell somebody God is specific. If God's got a message for you, if God wants, this is the reason why I'm saying this, if God wants someone to heal you, he'll tell the person to whom he gave the message, or the person to whom he gave the healing power, your name, where you live, and what's wrong. So stop listening to false healers selling wolf tickets, telling you God's telling me that somebody here. No, who is it? Somebody here got a pain in their right knee. If he gave you that, tell me the name of the person. Or here's one. God is telling me that he has a message for someone whose name begins with a J. If he gave you the J, he's specific. He'll tell you everything. Or this other one, God's letting me know that somebody's going to be blessed in 30 days. Tell me what the blessing is. Because God is specific. Such generalities is proof. Now, that for me is proof that the message or instructions is not from God. Why? Because as evidenced by God's instructions to Cornelius, God gave specifics. He told Cornelius, go to Joppa, ask for Simon, whose surname is Peter. He's living in a house by the seaside. The name of the street is Straight. Is owned by another man named Simon, and his occupation is a tanner. He gave everything. But God's telling me, somebody here. Let me get back to the message. I just wanted to throw that gem in. I like it when someone says, you're going to be blessed in 30 days. I mark off the first day, because Negro, if at the end of 30 days I'm still in this same situation,